Hello, my name is Fiona Brady and I'm the Education Specialist with Down Syndrome Ireland. I would like to welcome you to this presentation on accessing the curriculum and differentiation of work for students with Down syndrome, one of a series of information presentations that will be available for you online on the DSI website over the coming weeks. The educational targets for children with Down syndrome are the same as those for all students. For most students, targets should be relevant to their age. However, when setting targets for children with Down syndrome, we must be aware of the associated typical learning profile and adapt the targets we set appropriately. In addition to adapting targets, we also need to adapt our teaching and adapt our expectations for the learning to be achieved by students with Down syndrome. We need to build on their social strengths, having high expectations for behaviour, with an emphasis on the development of their relationships with and friendships with others. This should be done against the background of their cognitive delay, taking account of their slower rate of learning, incorporating small steps, and looking towards the developmental approach with daily instruction, recording progress, and giving frequent opportunities for practice and consolidation. In our planning also, we need to address their delayed developments in speech and language and their visual learning strengths. With their motor delays and any possible issues there are in behaviour and attention. To ensure that students are enabled to learn and participate, we also need to be aware of issues relating to hearing and visual loss. To address hearing loss, we need to ensure that children with hearing aids are wearing them and that these hearing aids are well adjusted and suitable for the child. If there is a sound field system in classrooms, it should be used. Teachers need to speak clearly, children able to see their face and to see the signs they make. Teachers should also use pictures and other illustrations. Children should be positioned near the teacher and any background noise should be reduced. When the child has visual impairments, again, it is the adult's responsibility to ensure that the child wears their glasses and to keep them clean. In preparing worksheets, we always use black print on white paper. We avoid coloured pencils on coloured paper. White paper is the recommendation unless otherwise has been specifically recommended by an optician or an ophthalmologist. The font we use should be at least 18, no smaller, and if possible, we should always use bold print. And again, the child needs to sit near the board or near the whiteboard where they are focusing. Therefore, we're dealing with a very wide range of ability. And it should be noted always that within the typical learning profile of a child with Down syndrome, there exists a very wide range of ability in all students. And adapting our teaching gives us the scope to tailor programs for the individual student. To access the literacy and maths curriculum, for instance, be aware that the children will follow the same developmental steps as all children, but they will be much smaller steps and they will take more time to learn. Children will need plenty of repetition and practice. Generalization needs to be taught. The child with Down syndrome that will not automatically know that €5 is the same as 5, the number. This has to be taught. When we look at other subjects, such as geography and history, any topic can be easily simplified. Remember, we are adding to the child's general knowledge, so try, if possible, to link to the child's world, the family, what their siblings might be learning or doing, and to their community and to their culture. We also need to ensure that we do not limit the students by giving them work that is too easy. This can lead to boredom and frustration for the student, which can then, unfortunately, manifest itself in behavioural issues. The reading targets we select for children is based on the reading progress they are making. We build on prior knowledge. We build on what they have already learned. Remember to record all sight words that they know, and be aware that we really need to be aiming for approximately an 800-word core vocabulary to be mastered. Now, this certainly might not be the case at primary school. We could be well into post-primary school before we reach this stage. We also need to keep a note of the progress the child makes with their letters and their letter-sound relationships. Because once we get to the stage of using our phonics work to improve reading and to work on reading, we need to know what sight words and what sounds the child already knows. We also need to take note of the comprehension strategies the child knows. And it's important to note that for reading, we do not set targets for groups of children. We set targets for each individual child. Reading targets must be personal. In accessing the curriculum for writing development, we need the student to be able to put their thoughts on paper, to record their thoughts, and we can use a variety of strategies for this. And there's some ideas listed there on the slide. For example, take a photo, write about the photo. Build sentences, with the child building longer and more complex sentences. We can also look at their handwriting. We do not teach handwriting when we are allowing the child to write and put their thoughts on paper. Handwriting is always taught separately as part of a motor skills program. And just as a little aside here, if the child is struggling with handwriting by, I would say, quite early in primary school, maybe first, second class, introduce touch typing as early as possible, because they really need to have that as an option going forward. And remember that writing will affect numeracy. So in addition to practicing letters and words, we also need to practice writing numbers and mathematical signs, etc. Just taking a very quick look at the concept of mathematics and accessing the curriculum in mathematics for children with Down syndrome. Students need to have a basic understanding of the number concepts and counting procedures. But we need to look at what maths knowledge is necessary for life skills. So they are calculating, adding, subtracting, multiplying and dividing using a calculator. A calculator should be used once the child starts using double figures, for example, tens and units. We do not need to go into the whole concept of regrouping and borrowing and paying back. The child simply needs to learn how to use a calculator properly. And a calculator in both forms. By that I mean the traditional calculator they would use at school, and also we need to familiarise children with the calculator on their phones, because realistically we don't walk around the town with a calculator in our pockets, but we would have our phones. The child needs to have some idea of time. Digital time would be the recommendation. Money, we usually just look at the next biggest amount, and it's quite sufficient at least in the early stages, to look at just €1, €2, €5, and €10, and so on. We also give some instruction on simple fractions, in other words, a half and a quarter, so that the child, for life skills again, that the child will know what half a pizza is, or what a quarter of the cake is, and so forth. But please bear in mind that there are huge varieties and huge variations in the ability of individual students with maths, and this must be taken into account when we plan the numeracy programme. Some children will be very well able to make progress in numeracy. Others will not be just as well able to progress with numeracy at the same rate as they will be, for example, progressing with their literacy learning. In accessing the curriculum, for example, in history and geography, what do we do? Well, you take the class topic that you're doing and you simplify. And the question you ask yourself is, what is the most important thing I need all students to learn from this lesson? Just one thing. That then is the fact that you need the child with Down syndrome to learn. So therefore, how are we going to approach this one fact? Are there new words to be learned? These words could be pre-learned in the resource room. How can I make it visual? How can I bring the learning alive? How can I relate it to the child's experiences or what the child already knows? How can I get home to support in the teaching of this? Are there activities that I can ask to be done at home? For example, can the child be brought to take a picture of some place and use that picture then for a writing activity? Again, it's very important that the topics we use or the aspect of the topic we teach is relevant to the child. If a child is living in County Cavan, they don't really need to know what river Cork is built on. But they do need to know what river Cavan is, what river is most important in Cavan. That would be the River Erne. So therefore, you would do a lot of work around the River Erne with that child, while the other children might be doing more rivers and all the rivers of Ireland, etc., etc. That one river would be sufficient for that child to start with. Then, if that's successful, you might go on and then do some work on the longest river in Ireland. So we need to simplify, we need to differentiate. But in all this and against this, we're working on the background that all children are at least on the same topic. Again, I've mentioned already about making things visual. So make full use of photos, phone, iPad, download from the internet, take real pictures. A child can make a personal book on the particular aspect of the particular topic. Again, using the internet, work with other children in small groups can be very useful. And again, remember the work we do with them in geography and in history on developing particular topics can be used then to develop sentences and grammar in English. And always work on what the child says or communicates. Listen to the child. When you give them the topic and the initial instruction, listen to the child. What is the child thinking and what is the child doing? Generally speaking, we do need to adapt for their language level. Please talk to them in simple sentences, not complex sentences, because you will lose them after the first couple of words. Consider the vocabulary used. Does the child understand all the words being used? And that's very important because we sometimes say things, we sometimes give instructions that not all children will know what we mean. Do remember, though, that the children with Down syndrome in particular, their understanding is way ahead of their expression. They cannot always put what they know into words. So try to give them another means if they cannot say it, if they cannot tell you the answer. Ask them to show you the answer, to draw you the answer, to pick the answer from a list, to point to a picture, and so on. Simplify language and always provide visual supports both for writing and talking. not just for talking alone. When we talk about differentiation then, differentiation basically involves the reduction of the amount of work and the level of work for the individual student based on their ability. And we've just looked at that a few moments ago when we looked at the topic in geography. But from this slide, it has been the lack of materials and the need for differentiated support can be problematic if the child is just expected to get on with the reading books that are laid down for their particular chronologically set class. The booklets will help the teachers to provide suitable materials for their teenagers with Down syndrome, resulting, of course, in better learning outcomes and more inclusion, where the children will all be working at least on the same topic, albeit at different levels. The introductory booklet to the series also has information for teachers on IEPs, strategies for learning and teaching, a behaviour checklist, and information on other related issues such as hearing and vision. As I said at the beginning of this session, this presentation is one of a series of information presentations available on the DSI website over the coming weeks. Presentations are relevant for both teachers and parents alike, and the information in some of the presentations are applicable to both primary school and post-primary school. I will be delivering the green list, and my colleague Nicola Hart, Head of Member Support, will be delivering the red list of seminars. Our contact details are available on this slide, along with the details of the Down Syndrome Ireland website. Please feel free to contact either of us if you have any queries going forward. As always, I would like to acknowledge the work of Professor Sue Buckley, whose expertise and knowledge informs my work with Down Syndrome Ireland every day. Please do check out our website for the resources I have highlighted in the presentation. Bye for now.